Well, Tony Khan, TK, the AEW owner, is at it again on Twitter/X. Yep. And I found out about this. I wake up this morning, look at my phone that I'm currently using to record this audio on, and I see people like Pro Wrestling World, Pro Wrestling Network, Just Alex of Just Alex Central, and others, basically quoting what Tony Khan said. And what he said is two things that caught people's attention. Basically they were back to back, seemingly back to back. The first one, he said, is, I book wrestling for the sickos because that's who I am. Let me make sure. But basically he says, I book wrestling for the sickos because that's what I am and that's who I care about. And then, seemingly, a little later on, he says, wake up the bots and tell them we're having fun over here in AEW. Or as he puts it, over here at AEW. And then he keeps going on. He says, he replies to somebody else because they announced that on Dynamite, Mercedes is going to defend the TBS Championship against CMLL star Zurexis. Yeah, Zurexis. That's her name. It's it's basically Mercedes is going to defend the TBS Championship against Zurexis. That's Zeuxis. And then he says he's going to have a video package on her tomorrow night on Collision. So obviously he's taking some criticism, or at least the team around him is taking some criticism and saying, hey, people are complaining they don't know much about this person. So now he's coming out and saying, hey, we'll have an informative video package on Zeuxis before her huge title challenge against Mercedes. And then in response, and this is basically around the same time frame, 19 hours ago as I'm recording this, and it's about 4:35 p.m., he responds to somebody that says, and let me see, I think it's around here somewhere. He responds to a Knife Man. He responds to somebody called Knife Man, who's known as @T_virus96. He says, I would protest this if I was Stephanie. Now, Stephanie is Stephanie Van Keur. I think that's her name. Stephanie Van Keur, who is the New Japan Strong Women's Champion and the CMML Women's Champion. CMLL Women's Champion and the, like I said, the New Japan Strong Women's Champion. Basically, Knife Man said, I would protest this if I was Stephanie. I still have to put my title on the line, but Mercedes has nothing to lose. And then he has a gif of Darth Vader say, he has a gift. Like I was saying, he adds a gif picture, if you will, of Darth Vader from Star Wars saying, I'm altering the deal, pray I don't alter it any further. Because he's saying that, if he was this Stephanie Van Keur, the New Japan Strong Women's Champion and CMLL Women's Champion, that, basically it's unfair that if, Mercedes loses to Zeuxis on Dynamite, which she won't, that it's unfair that only her title would be on the line and Mercedes has nothing to put up against that. So, so that's what this Knife Man said in response to the announcement that Mercedes would be defending her title this Wednesday. And then Tony responds by saying, wrestling is a high-stakes, cutthroat business. Really? So you say that, and then in response, basically to what Dave Meltzer says, because Dave Meltzer, let's face it, Dave Meltzer, with all due respect to the guy and what he's contributed to the business, he's basically an AEW sympathizer. He is a butt kisser. Yes, he'll criticize him at times, but he is AEW through and through. They might as well put a graphic up saying Dave Meltzer is all elite. So that's what they should do. But he basically came out and reported that the ratings he gave were accurate and that WWE basically supplied ratings that were not accurate to a reporter. So And basically, Tony comes out and says these are the same predatory business practices that Jim Crockett Promotions and plus many former wrestling territories faced in the 1980s. I'm grateful for all of you wrestling fans who watch AEW, and AEW is here to stay. So, I'm not denying there isn't any truth to that, but seriously, I think WWE is at the point right now where they don't have to resort, or they're not resort, but they don't have to resort to basically giving out false information about ratings and all that. I mean, yeah, they did it basically a couple years ago after the Nick Gage, Chris Jericho incident, when Nick Gage used the pizza cutter on there, or pizza slicer, I should say, and Domino's was one of the sponsors at the time for Dynamite. And they basically used some cutthroat tactics there. But that was at a time when Dynamite, AEW, was basically at its apex. They were basically becoming the new WCW of 1996, 1997. They were on that warpath, if you will. They were on that warpath of beating WWE, Raw, and SmackDown, and even NXT combined. But that was then. WWE now is in a position to where they don't have to, worry about any of those kind of tactics. Yeah, they'll take shots here and there, but I don't think they would go as far as say, hey, let's put in some false rating numbers and everything to discredit AEW. I don't think they'll go that far. They'll take pot shots, yes, but not, I don't think they'll basically go and say, hey, there's ratings, these are the ratings that came in and they're very low. No, I don't think they do that. Again, I'm not putting it past them, but I think they're at a point right now where they don't have to do that. But yet, Tony Khan, once again, is making a fool out of himself. He is. I mean, he comes out, first thing in the morning, he says, 20 hours ago, first thing he says is he books wrestling for the sickos because that's who he is, and that's what he cares about. And then he follows that up by saying, wake up the bots, tell them we're having fun over here at AEW. If Tony Khan doesn't get it right now, I don't think he ever will. Because as I've said it before, and I've alluded to it before, I think Tony Khan misses having Vince McMahon to go up against. And you know why? Because as I've said before, he had an easier time, against Vince. He was basically playing softball with Vince. But now that he's playing up against or going up against Paul Levesque and Nick Khan, playtime. Oh, no. Playtime's now over, and now he's trying to hit hard balls, out of the park, or at least try to get a couple of base hits. He's just in a situation now to where it's a lot harder than he's ever imagined it could be, and he's going up against somebody in Triple H, Paul Levesque, that's out for blood. Triple H, Paul Levesque is out for blood because of the fact that he has not forgotten, nor will he ever forget, nor has he forgotten, nor will he probably ever forgive the fact that Tony Khan's AEW caused his NXT to switch nights, and they've never been the same. So he's out. So Tony Khan's realizing that the guy he's going up against now is out for blood. But to me, this is why I think Tony is trying to put everything on his own shoulders. And here's why. Here's why he's trying to put everything on his own shoulders, okay? It's because the way he views it, when Vince McMahon was running things in 2019, basically that abysmal time frame of late 2018 all the way through 2019 and early 2020, pre-pandemic, and then even post-pandemic, pandemic, basically early to mid 2021 to basically mid 2022, Tony Khan, even though there were some up and downs behind the scenes and on camera with stories and everything, Tony Khan was still in a favorable place. People were going to him for wrestling, for storytelling and everything, even if the storytelling didn't make sense, because they were different. They were new. And the talent got to have more free range on what they could do in the ring and what they could say on the mic. They did. They saw AEW being that alternative that it was promoting itself to be. And mostly also, even if some of the stuff didn't make sense, and the show might have not been as good as it should be, they would prefer it more so over what Vince was giving. And that's about the truth right there. That's the truth. Tony Khan misses having Vince McMahon as the guy to go up against. He misses that. Because why? Because he knew fans that would automatically basically be trained to tune in to watch Raw and SmackDown. When they would see something they didn't like, they'd be like, turn it off. Come Wednesday night, okay, let's see what Dynamite has to offer. And they'd be like, oh, it may not be so good, but it's better than WWE. I'm going to watch this. He misses that. And now, with Triple H running things creatively, along with his team, everybody's starting to see maybe those little cracks in the foundation of AEW, even as late as 2021, early 2022. Those little cracks that they started to see have become exposed more so than ever. They become freaking cracks created by massive earthquakes, if you will. That's how bad it's gotten. Because now when you compare the booking and the storytelling, between both companies and between Triple H and Tony Khan, it's night and day. It is night and day. Now, has Triple H, had a lot of winners at times throughout his run? No. Even when he had a little bit of a taste of the cup, if you will, a little bit of a appetizer in 2022 when Vince had to disappear for a while. People started to see the cracks being formed even more so with AEW. They started to see it. I mean, AEW was still looked at as a better alternative than WWE because Triple H had a lot of cleaning up to do. But again, they were still, but hold on. I'm trying to find the right words to say here, guys. Hold on for a second. I'm getting a little tongue-tied. But like I was saying, even when Triple H, had that bit of an appetizer given to him in 2022, late 2022, when Vince had to step away, that's when people started to see, a little bit of those cracks forming even more so. Those cracks getting bigger, and AEW and Tony Khan mostly being exposed for maybe not being as good as they say they are. And here's the thing. Those cracks got bigger and bigger during that little brief period Triple H was running things. But despite getting to a certain, size and, size in the crackness, if you will, a size in the crackness, they didn't get any bigger. Because when Vince came back, people started to notice, hey, Vince is running things again, those cracks just remained as big as they were, as they got at that time, because people were starting to filter back over to AEW. They started to filter back to AEW because they basically felt like, well, Vince is back. It may not be as bad as it used to be, but we can tell he's back. Let's go over to AEW. But ever since Triple H took over, because let's be honest, even though Vince was still calling the shots, you could tell over time, even after the TKO announcement and, merger and all that was coming to be, and all the, I's and T's were being dotted, you could tell that things were kind of improving. Not to the point where they are now, but they were getting there. And now we're at a point we're at a point, ladies and gentlemen, to where basically, even though it took time, you could definitely see Triple H's influence all over. You could see it. You could see his influence. You could see The Rock's influence. You could see the people that they work with and they trust influence all over the product. You could see that. Okay? And like I said, even though it took time in 2023 with the I's and T's still being dotted up until the merger finally happened, you could kind of see it kind of progressing and getting better and better. And as it progressed and got better and better, that little crack that remained a certain size, like say the size of your hand, it just got bigger and bigger and bigger in the exposedness of Tony Khan and AEW. And now that we're at a point where WWE is pretty much hitting on all cylinders, with a few misses here and there, but hitting on all cylinders to the point that they're selling out arenas and venues, not just here in the States, but around the globe. The viewership numbers are kind of up, maybe not at what they were before, but getting there again. You're starting to notice, like I said, that gradual progression finally, hitting its apex. And now that it's hitting its apex, that exposure, that crack that was the size of your hand, that was slowly getting bigger and bigger and bigger during that progressionary period, even while still under Vince McMahon and the I's and T's were being dotted to become part of TKO. What happened? Now, over that time frame, like I said, that crack started to get bigger and bigger and bigger, inch by inch, to the point that now that crack is pretty much a full-on sinkhole. It's a pretty much full-on sinkhole that AEW has fallen into, that Tony Khan and AEW has fallen into, and it's basically to the point that Tony Khan is letting his exposedness, get to him. He's letting the fact that because WWE has finally hit that apex again, they are back where they should be under the right kind of leadership. You got the talent more happier than they've ever been, having a little bit more freedom than they've ever had. All that combined. And when people make that comparison now, they make that comparison now. Hold on for a second. Like I was saying, basically, it's gotten to a point to where, again, falling into that sinkhole in WWE, because WWE is now at a place where it should be under the right kind of people. The talent feel more free, more relaxed, more happier, and everything. It's like, it's like all that combined. It's like night and day. Because if you would have told people 5 years ago that WWE would be what AEW was, and AEW is becoming what WWE, WCW in the year 2000 was, I don't think anybody would believe you. I don't think anybody would believe you. I don't think anybody would be able to look at you with a straight face and be like, yeah, right. WWE going to be what AEW is in 5 years? Yeah, right. AEW is going to be the superior brand. They're going to put WWE out of business. If you would have told somebody, like I said, 5 years ago that the roles were to be reversed, they would have not believed you. But now, I guarantee you they would. Because they're seeing it with their own eyes. And I think that's what's getting to Tony Khan. That's what's getting to his team. That's what's getting to the elite in a way, that they don't want, they don't want it to. Look, everybody has said that they have the potential to get back to where they were. They have certain story elements they could really build upon and make into something great. But it's just not working. It's just not clicking on all cylinders. It's like something is amiss. It is. Some people are even looking at the fact that, ironically, because of the timing, Tony Khan comes out on Double or Nothing along with Martha Hart and says, oh, by the way, the winners of the Owen Hart tournament, they're not getting a trophy this year. No. Instead, both winners, men and women, are going to get shots at the respective world championships at All In. And a lot of people saw this and they're like, really? So you're just basically copying and pasting. You're just copying and pasting what WWE did for King of the Ring. Gee, isn't that timing kind of ironic? Now, some people have come out and said that, yeah, the timing is ironic and it does feel like a copy and paste, but they do try to justify it, even those I follow, even try to justify it by saying, well, at least, Tony Khan is paying attention to what WWE is doing and taking what, they did for King of the Ring and applying it to something that he should have applied it to in the first place. But, that's neither here nor there. That's neither here nor there. However, I will say this. If Tony Khan wants to get out of that sinkhole, because he is so deep in it right now, it's going to take him years to to climb out. If he wants to get out of it, though, quicker, then he needs to get off. He needs to get off social media. He needs to do exactly what a lot of people have been saying. He needs to get a team together, give responsibility to someone else, and just watch from the sidelines. Do what he did 4 to 5 years ago. Just be the guy that says, okay, yes, I like that. Let's do that. Yes, I like that. Let's do that. No, I don't like that. Let's try this. I don't know. We could try, but if it don't work, we'll do this. That's all he has to do. That's all he has to go back to doing. But obviously, it seems that it seems he doesn't want to do it. He doesn't want to listen to people. And it's almost like, it's like when he lost Cody. It's when he lost Cody, that was like the first stake in his heart, right? Or the first knife in his back. And then when he had to fire Phil Brooks, CM Punk, that was like another stake in his heart and another knife in his back. Because you can't tell me losing Cody didn't upset him. You can't tell me having to fire CM Punk did not upset him. It did, and he's not been the same since. Because those were his game changers. Those were the men that were going to make AEW the top-notch tier wrestling promotion in the entire world. And now they're both with WWE. And you can't tell me it doesn't bug him. That was in the span of 2 weeks. A guy that he could have, he could have had the entire company centered around, even for a brief period, but could have helped elevate the company as a top-tier star. All ego Ethan Page is now part of WWE, and within the span of 2 weeks has become more important, more relevant, more talked about, more, I guess you could say, prestiged than he ever was in AEW/ROH. And you can't tell me that doesn't eat Tony Khan alive. The same thing with Brian Pillman Jr., a.k.a. Lexus King. And the same with Sean Spears. You can't tell me it doesn't eat him alive. And you can't tell me it doesn't eat him alive that even though he could try and maybe successfully try to get some of the free agents upcoming to come over, that he's not going to be able to do it. He knows there's a good chance they're going to stay where they are, or they might try, let's say, total nonstop action. And you can't tell me he doesn't realize that one of the guys he has focused the company on, that he was happy to bring in to the company, the American Dragon, Bryan Danielson. You can't tell me it doesn't eat him alive, that his contract's coming up, and his contract's one of the biggest contracts in the company. You can't tell me it doesn't eat him alive, that he might have to let this guy go free, and that there's a good chance Bryan Danielson will return to WWE as Daniel Bryan. You can't tell me that doesn't eat him alive, knowing that's a real possibility in the fall of this year. Because it is. But that's then, this is now, and right now, if he wants to prevent anything like that happening, he needs to get his act together. And posting crap like that, I book for this, I book for the sickos because I'm one of them and that's what I care about. That's not helping. Telling everybody, wake up the bots. Tell them we're having fun over here at AEW. That's not helping. Him telling a fan, hey, this is the predatorial wrestling business. That's what, this is a wrestling business. It's predatorial because the fan doesn't like the idea that, hey, there's a good chance, even though it won't happen, Mercedes could lose to Zooxis, this Wednesday, and only Stephanie Von Cures NJPW's Women's Strong title would be on the line. You know, it doesn't help him when he does stuff like that. So, Tony Khan, if he wants that deal that he's asking for, he wants so desperately when it comes to media rights, he needs to wake up and realize that the only person that's causing him to lose that possibility is himself. He's got to look in the mirror and realize that. He's got to. But yeah, in closing, he was at it again today. And that's all I'm going to say, guys. Let me know what your thoughts are down below. Comment if you like. And I am out.